You know, I think about us, the three of us, what we could be. I think about it all the time.
Please. It's terrible.
No, it's not. I know June. She's my friend. I care about her. How's your day going? You look pretty.
Thanks. I wore it just for you. Our father's a driver named Nick. He helped me to survive. Yes, you can, because I can't lose you.
I'm not gonna let anything happen to you.
What about you?
Your girlfriend is a badass.
Welcome to Above the Garage, a Nick and June, the Handmaid's Tale podcast. Hi, friends. Welcome to our deep dive into season 2, episode 3 of The Handmaid's Tale, which is entitled Baggage. This episode is intended for longtime fans because we're going to talk about the show in the context of the show to date, which is through season 4. So there'll be lots of spoilers. And let's do our round of introductions and then dive in.
Hi, I'm Megan.
Hi, I'm Scarlett.
Hi, I'm Julia.
And I'm Kate. Anyone want to start?
I can. It's actually something right at the beginning of the episode. Yes. When June was listening to this tape recording, this guy, I think his name was Lars or something.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. He's talking about this Facebook group, which is obviously like Sons of Jacob Facebook group that was set up and he became a member of. And that kind of reminded me of, if you really look closely in the 4th season on Twello's whiteboard,
right? His murder board.
Yeah, on his murder board, and especially on the part about Nick, you see like a clipping of a Facebook conversation between like members of probably this group he was talking about.
Wait, so you're telling me you zoomed in on Nick's
murder board?
Of course. I mean, I'm still a little salty that his driver's license is unreadable.
I know. I zoomed in too. I was like, oh, I can't see.
But yeah, that's a very good point. That's what I thought of when they said the Facebook thing too. But I didn't think to make a note of it.
I always get in that what you were saying about Lars saying that how he got into the group was because they said they wanted to clean up the economy and they wanted to help children from bad homes. And I'm like, it always sounds like it's a good idea until they change it on you. Sounds like all that sounds good, and I think that's how Nick got in it too. Obviously,
it's also kind of a little nod to Nick because he was still a very young man as well when he got recruited. So he's
right.
Like he was in a bad position. His family was in a bad position. He was young. He could have been one of this like kids this Sons of Jacob wanted to help.
Right. I mean, it just shows you, how easy it was to lure people on a false promise. And then they change the game on you, right?
Yeah.
When you're already in too deep, it's going to be they're going to clean up the economy. They're going to clean up the environment and get the economy back on track. And who wouldn't want to be a part of that, right?
Yeah, they're saying what people want to listen to, so that's easy. It's also easy.
Right.
One of the newspaper headlines also read, "Old-fashioned group raises new hope."
Right, exactly. They get them on the hope.
Yeah.
And then they realize it's not that.
Yeah, and then it flashes to the soldier we were talking about, within a week you're forced to do. Like, once the violent takeover happened, like, there's no going away from there. Like, you were there, you had to comply or die.
And before that,
Right.
like I picture if Nick was at the violent takeover, it's not like he could have turned around and left. They would have killed him.
No,
So
of course.
No. And if he was there, did he know what they were doing? I mean,
No,
we
yeah.
don't know these things.
Yeah.
I mean, all of a sudden shit could have hit the fan and then you're in it.
Right.
I mean, what do you do? Oh, just kidding.
They show very clearly what a good heart he has, So
Right.
we all are very confident that he didn't enter into any killing situation knowingly, right?
No.
It's comply or die, like you said. And they tried to
Right.
show us that in episode 8, right?
Season 1.
Season 1, episode 8. And I feel like a lot of people just don't understand the significance of them writing an entire episode about this,
It goes back to that people just can't feel empathetic for people in those situations. It's always, I would never do this. And
Right.
That's generally it's those who kind of lack empathy who think that way. They
Right.
think it's black and white and there is no gray area. They don't realize that a lot of times in situations like these, like we've always mentioned, it's comply or die. And you don't know what decision you would make until that was in front of you.
And before that, it was, I can't pay the rent for my dad, and I can't feed
Right.
my dad and my brother, and they're dying, and I need a job. So you want me to drive for the sons of Jacob, whoever that is? Okay, sure. You
Yeah.
know, like it was never, I hate women and I would like to join this group. And
Yeah, it wasn't at all that.
I'm pretty sure the group was not handing out brochures saying that. You know,
Right.
it's also a matter of people not understanding that these things have happened throughout history. You
Yeah.
just study a little bit about history and propaganda and you kind of figure out how things happen. It's not I joined because I wanted to. Like
Yeah.
if it were as easy to say, I'm not going to do this, I'm out, then things like this wouldn't have happened throughout history.
It would never happen. Right.
But it happens, you know.
Right.
It's propaganda. They're all about the hook. They're all about the
Mhm.
hook.
Yeah.
And they're good at it. Like Price was
Mhm.
great. He identified Nick perfectly. This is a perfect target, a smart guy, family, you know, all he cares about his family. He needs the money desperately to keep his family alive. I'm going to go after him. And it worked.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, even like women like started to follow them. I mean, we see this nurse at some point who like when June is about to give birth and she said praise be. I mean,
Right.
They were slowly infiltrating. We've seen it throughout, you know, the first season, how little by little people,
Yeah.
you know, kind of started popping up.
Right. Like in the first episode of the season, I think, is when Hannah was sick and at the hospital, that woman was also like that, you know?
The social worker.
You're right. They just popping up all the time in these pre-Gilead flashbacks.
Well, when June's talking her first voiceover, she says women are so adaptable and it's truly amazing what we can get used to. And, you know, she's standing by the memorial. Obviously, throughout the episode, we see in these first scenes that she's very adapted to her kind of quote unquote domestic life with Nick. And then it flashes to Moira in the same memorial and we see how she's struggling and she's not adapting to her life in Canada.
Yeah.
And then we flash forward to season 4, how, you know, Moira's already adapted to her life in Canada and June cannot adapt to her life in Canada.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I had sex after Gilead and the different ways that everybody deals with it. Because even after Emily gets out, you know, she says, I'm still not sleeping with Sylvia. And then we see Moira in this trauma at the club, and we see June do some questionable, make some questionable sexual choices in the 4th season. But she still manages to have this incredible sexual relationship with Nick. And I think I don't know if we see any other like healthy sexual relationships in the show. I mean, I hate Steven, that guy in the 4th season.
It was just gross.
Janine seems happy, but I don't know. I'm not on board with that one.
Well, at least he said, I'm not going to force you.
Oh, please.
I mean, but I mean, what is it? They starve to death or?
Yeah, exactly.
It was forced. Yeah.
But I'm not going to, you know, be violent about it. Thank you. So nice.
I was horrified when that was on the table and I thought she was going to do it. And she's like just come from Nick, you know, on the bridge. And
she couldn't do it.
And Steven wants her to give him a blowjob. And I was like, oh God, I was very upset. And thank God she was like, I can't. Yeah. But I just, you know, obviously coming out of being serially raped or even raped once, it's so hard to find your sexual comfort zone. And it's really nice that June kind of had that with Nick off the bat and feels safe with him. I think we talked about that. Scarlett, you talked about that in the last episode.
Yeah.
And it's nice that Moira eventually has Una and she seemed happy. What else you guys got?
When we see in the Red Center that June sees that her mom is in the colonies, it called my attention that the colony looked different from the colony we saw in the episode before that was really dry, really brown. There was a tree that seemed pretty much alive behind Holly. So it gave me the impression that she wasn't in a radioactive colony. And then the next slide that pops up is they're talking about farming. And I hope, you know, that she's alive. And then I remember an interview where they said that they wanted Sherry Jones, which is the actress who plays Holly, they had her for season 4, but because of COVID, they couldn't film the scenes that they had written for her. So they never said if it was a flashback or if it was just, something else. But, it kind of gave me hope that maybe Holly's still alive and kicking somewhere.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
I think there's a possibility.
I do too.
I mean, to use Cherry Jones,
Yeah.
right? To use her again.
It would just be so amazing to see them together now that they're so similar,
Yeah.
And kind of sad if you never get to see that because they'd be badasses. And I want Holly to see what a badass June is.
Yeah.
She'd be so proud of her. Let's not miss this opportunity.
Yeah, she would.
Let Holly see what June turned into.
So do we feel like she's still there or that she got out?
I would say she'd have probably gotten out by now. I guess my dream scenario would be she runs into her fighting, in the resistance when she goes back in season 5, if she goes back in season 5.
So you think she's in Gilead, but in the rebel area?
Yeah. I mean, she's not going to go live happily in Canada.
No.
Much like her daughter, June. But I had the same thought, Scarlett, when the scene popped up. Like, that was not the colony that I was used to because they had us there the whole last episode. And it was a very desolate, depressing, awful place. And there's radioactive signs everywhere. And this felt different. It was just like a white bag without any radioactive sign. She looked healthy. Like you said, there's a tree. So there's definitely hope for Holly, the mom. And then just as far as her escapes, this happens a few times throughout the show where she's having to make the decision. Do I leave Hannah? Is there any chance of me getting Hannah out from here? Is there a better chance for me getting Canada? Can I live with the guilt of being free while my daughter's not free? It's such a heavy thing to think about that I can't imagine. Because right now sitting here, I say, I wouldn't go, right? I'd never be able to leave Gilead with my daughter there. But who actually knows the decision that you would make?
Yeah, but also everyone is like around her is telling her, Hannah is better off without you in Gilead. I mean, leave her alone.
Yeah,
like
she's okay for now.
Serena said it like in the last episode of season 1. Like she's with a nice family. She's happy. Nick says it's better for Hannah if you leave.
Yeah,
we got like Aunt Lydia, and when June tries to get out, Hannah at the beginning of season 3, like the reason why she like can't leave with Nicole. She made it complicated for Hannah. She traumatized her, like showing up there.
Right.
When she meets her at the end of season 2 in the summer house, I mean, she scares her as well. Yeah. And obviously in season 4, when they put Hannah in this
glass box,
and there's so much trauma and so much things June makes complicated for her, and it's just
right.
Like,
I mean,
it's sad to see that those people who told her that it's better if she stays out of Hannah's life are kind of right, because
right, exactly. Every time she's just traumatized her every time.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I wouldn't do the same thing, because I would.
It's everyone would. I mean, every mother would do the same, but it's even more heartbreaking to see that.
It's interesting that she makes the decision to go, and then at the end of this season, she makes the decision not to go, to stay here for Hannah. But maybe it's merely that the baby is not in her body anymore. So, the baby can now go to Canada without her, which obviously I've said this before. I think it's insane that she didn't take her own baby there, but it's okay. It's a show.
I think she doesn't leave Hannah because it was so heavy for her to make that decision in those woods, in that parallel. That's where she was taken. And here's where I am deciding to leave her, that I think that scarred her enough not to want to leave Hannah. And like, as you said, it was easier because Holly was already safe in Canada. So I think it comes to that phrase, like, if you love something, you set it free. She has to leave Hannah because she's better off. Is she better off? She's going to be married to a commander. So I think that's why she decides to come back and tries to rescue her. But, she decides to leave Holly, and stay behind for Hannah. I know that a lot of people, like you said, didn't understand her decision, but I think it's that, it's a really hard decision for any mother to make.
And I think it was because she was just fresh off of seeing her and knowing where she is. And I think a part of her felt like, I can get her. Like, I really think she thought, I know where she is. I know where she lives.
At the end of season 2. Yeah.
Right. And then that's why she made the decision to stay and hand
Because she was
Holly off
close.
to, because she was that close. She felt that close. And in
Right.
season,
right now, she hasn't seen.
she didn't. Right now, she has not,
Well,
seen
she saw her at the school. Right.
Yeah, on the steps, but
she doesn't know where she was. She drove her 2
Right.
hours away and didn't let her know. She does not know where she is. So yeah, that makes
Right.
sense too. She feels more accessible.
Yeah.
But then in season 3, they completely cut her off from Hannah.
Right.
Once they killed the Martha, she lost all contact. And I think that's like in part why she loses her mind and decides to just do this crazy Angel's Flight scenario, just for payback. That's, I think she had given up on finding Hannah.
I do think it's interesting when they ask her why she did it. It's just to make them hurt. It's never
Mhm.
for the children. It's not to save these families. It's to, I want to hurt them the way they hurt me. She is
Right.
vengeful bitch, and I love her. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
But I also probably saw the urge to get Hannah out at the beginning of season 3 or the end of season 2
Mhm.
was also maybe because of Eden's death. Because I mean,
Yeah.
Hannah is about to become a teenager and will go through the same phase as Eden. Like we all have been teenagers. We all know like how hormones and all those stuff works.
Yeah.
And she definitely didn't want like Hannah to end up like Eden, like to have to marry some man she doesn't love or some person she doesn't love and
Mhm.
be forced into the same position.
Yeah.
So I think that also like added to the urge that she definitely needed to get to Hannah. And at this point, like when she was with like Lawrence, right? Lawrence knew where she was, like where Hannah was living at this point, right? So yeah, so she just grabbed this straw and it was like, okay, I get her out now. It's best chance I have.
It'd be interesting to see like at this age how, I don't know, Hannah's like 11 now in season 4, season 5. I don't know.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
But like you said, the fact that every single meeting with her mom has been so terribly traumatizing, it would be interesting to know if she would even go with June if she had the opportunity now. But God, it's also heartbreaking to think of. So we shall move on.
So yeah, it was interesting, this conversation between Heather, so Omar's wife, this Econo wife, and June, especially because like when Heather said that they threatened fertile woman with becoming a handmaid.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens.
It's gonna happen to her.
Yeah.
It's so sad, man. This show is really good at breaking my heart over and over again, and breaking June in this case. But yeah, and Heather had said I would die first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before I'd let my kid be taken away. And June said, I used to think that too. So we don't see what happens to her. We know that her child is taken away and she becomes a handmaid. So I'm thinking that she learned, unfortunately, like June, that
there's no choice.
That's not true.
There's no choice.
Yeah. And you'll do what you need to live.
Yeah, I was actually taken aback by June's comment that she used to think this as well, because I was trying to think about the situation. She was actually thinking that. I see that like after she sees Omar's body, like rest in peace, Omar. Now we can say it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I accidentally said that in the spoiler-free version, and I was corrected. Thank you.
Yeah, so like this situation and the blame Aunt Lydia puts on her, and all the things she's like seen happening because of her, supposedly. Yeah, that's when she loses
touch.
Yeah, loses touch, and also uses the drive to stay alive. But
right.
I haven't really had the thought, like in like the image that she wanted to die before. Did you?
I think that's something that anyone would say, like if somebody were going to take your kid, it's like, I'd rather die.
Right. I'd die before I'd let that happen.
I think it's just her saying that, like that I would never do this kind of thing. It's like what most people would say. That's the way that I took it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you would want to die,
exactly.
But would you actually go through with it? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like we feel like, oh, I'd rather cease to exist if something like that happened. But I mean, if there was a gun to your head,
right?
I think you'd be like, okay, what do I have to do?
Don't kill me
to live.
Yeah.
It's an emotional thing to say.
And like we've been talking about, she's also staying alive for Hannah. So
yeah, exactly. That's what I was like. There's no one who's going to rescue your kid if you're dead.
yeah, if
I
you
mean,
die. So you
yeah.
actually just have to become a handmaid.
Exactly. I have the parallel of the line you said. I waited before and I swore I'd never do that again, which parallels to episode 7 when she's in the car with Luke and they're discussing that she obviously wanted to leave as soon as she lost her job. So I think that's kind of like a parallel to that. Just a small one.
Well, that's what she's talking about. She's saying, like, as the world was, falling around me, we kept thinking, okay, it's going to get better. And especially being with Luke, like we've seen his personality many times throughout the episodes, just how much she's like a wishful thinking, everything's going to be okay, let's focus on the positive kind of person. And then that rubbed off on June,
Mm-hmm.
And you even see that in this episode again when he's talking about there's some troops on the border and he says they're going to invade Gilead, and he sounds so confident, like this is like true. He's very good at lying to himself and believing it because that's what he wants. There's nothing, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with him trying to focus on the positive either, but that is what I think she's talking about when she says, I waited too long once and I'm never going to do it again.
Right.
And Luke's still like waiting though, Luke's still waiting and hoping that something changes.
Yeah.
He never changes.
And June knows better now. June knows better. That's a difference because, pre-Gilead, she was very much like Luke. Like, oh, yeah, it's all roses. Everything's great as long as you say it is. And now she's like, F that. No, that's not. And Luke's still like, it's great. We'll just put it behind us. We'll go, to Fenway and grab a beer, and she's definitely went through a lot more than he has. Because she's completely changed. I mean, he's suffered too, but it hasn't affected him as deeply as June. She's not able to keep that positive, move forward type of frame of mind. She kind of really got hit by reality.
It's kind of amazing that Luke has remained so unchanged. I'm just thinking about like just his entire like personality and the way he interacts and jokes, and it's all the same, like even throughout all the years.
Coping mechanism. It's his coping mechanism.
Yeah, it's a coping.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And June is confronting it. Like, no, this is not how it is. It's not all roses. That's not how I'm going to cope. Right. I'm going to fight. I'm going to get angry. This sucks. And that's how she copes. Everybody copes differently.
What's her quote in season 4 about being angry? Why
can't we be as angry as we feel?
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I loved it when I heard it.
It's a valid emotion.
It's so her.
Mm-hmm.
And anger is a valid emotion. We need it. It helps us make decisions.
It's always seen negatively, but I think obviously you can't live in anger, but I think it pushes you, it moves you,
right?
So.
Also, anger is like, there's different outlets of anger.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can be angry without destroying or hurting anyone else.
Yeah.
So
a complete lack of anger, like on Luke's part in that car when he's saying like Fred's gonna get off. I mean, you just need to accept it. I forget the exact words. It just bugged me so much that he's not got any anger even after all of that,
right?
At Fred for serially raping his wife. Where's the rage, Luke? Just a little bit, please.
And we've seen Luke really, really angry when when the Waterfords visited Canada. Like it was total opposite.
Or even at his wife, Annie.
Yes.
He went to town on that voicemail.
That was nuts. That was so mean.
Yeah.
But it was a voicemail.
Yeah.
Like it was intense. Like when you hear the words, because I saw that episode yesterday. But then he's doing it on voicemail. Like, okay, dump her through text. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just weird. I got a lot from that scene for the next episode. But
yeah.
The other only thing that I had was something about religion in the episode. I like the way Toot's religions were presented in the episode when she's looking at the Salem sign, which obviously I'm gonna love. it's kind of like an ode to the Salem witch trials. We know what happened in the Salem witch trials in the 1600s. You know, all those women that were falsely accused of witchcraft because they didn't fall in line with what society wanted. And that line that Omer says, you know, are you a good witch or a bad witch? And she says it depends on who's asking. And then fast forward to, you know, the fact that Omer was a Muslim. I think it was presented also, you know, in a very nice way, because June gets very emotional, and, you know, there's a lot of misinformation in that religion. So the fact that he's helping her and he's Muslim, and the fact that she gets really emotional when she sees the Quran and the prayer, you know, it's something really nice, because religions don't have to be negative. It doesn't matter what you believe in. You know, they're supposed to be food for the soul. It's just the way that they're used and how people interpret them and how they're used to control and to create wars and all that. So I like that they presented that in a very peaceful, there's a lot of light in that window as well when she's having that moment. And, I thought it was a really beautiful scene, kind of like an ode to that.
Yeah, and it comes on the heels of the end of the last episode where she's praying very like genuinely, not a Gilead nonsense, you know, scripted, repeat these words. It's her actually like talking to God. And you remember, you know, she's mentioned a couple times that she was Catholic, and it's just genuine religion versus Gilead religion.
I think it's more spirituality. We talked about this before. June's very spiritual. Nick is also very spiritual. We see it in Eden as well. It's not the hypocrisy in Gilead where everybody sees everybody praying and they need that validation as we're doing the right thing by forcing others and saving them. Like, this is something, you know, June is praying because that's what she feels she needs in that moment for the people that died there. She's not even doing it for herself. She's doing it, you know, for the people that died there. So it's really beautiful the way that they present that, the contrast.
Agreed. And then back to June. She did not escape.
Who turned her in? What was it? The girl on the train? Yeah, I think it was the girl on the train. Right.
Well,
yeah. What was
where were Omar and Heather and Adam too?
Right.
I don't know. Like her looking out that window and standing behind, like always at that curtain was like, oh God.
Yeah. I mean, it could be both. I mean, that woman on the train just seemed so like, or maybe she tipped him off where she was going. And
maybe both, kind of.
Maybe both. Yeah.
The safe house was already compromised.
Right.
Before she got to Omar's house. So that was just the first hiccup in the plan. And obviously we can assume that Omar and his family got captured. If they would have talked fast, I think somebody mentioned this in the rewatch, they would have grabbed her before she left because she waited 3 hours. So they didn't talk fast, or maybe they didn't grab them fast, or I don't know, because it took a while for her to actually get to the airstrip as well. And eventually they zeroed in. So somebody had to talk. Like, I don't know if Omar knew what was, he knew she was going to go to the airstrip. So it had been him, because nobody else knew that she was going to go to the airstrip.
Right.
So I would assume that because they tortured him and threatened his family, eventually he said what the plan was, and they unfortunately caught her.
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Right, that does. I don't think somebody was following her. I don't think
she would have known.
It was notable to me in this episode that she's in the plane. It's taking off. It really feels like she's going to get there in this episode. And then the gunshots happen, and no go. It's coming back down. And then at the end of season 3, they try very hard to get all these kids out, and she's been shot and is laying on the ground, and the last thing that she sees is this plane actually taking off into Canada. And I love that parallel, because she didn't get out, but she saved how many kids?
86.
Yeah. And Rita. And it's just, I love the end of season 3. It's amazing. So if this plane had to go down, it was worth it, because look at all the people she got out.
Yes, that's very true. So I have 2 favorite lines. Episode 3 has a lot to do with June's mother and with motherhood. And 2 of my favorite lines are, raise your daughter to be a feminist, and she spends all her time waiting to be rescued by men when she's by the plane. I love that line. And at the end, when the plane's leaving, she says, no mother is ever completely a child's idea of what a mother should be, and I suppose it works the other way around. I wish my mother were here so I could tell her I finally know this, so I could tell her I forgive her. And that always makes me think to that complicated relationship she had that we saw in this episode, where you kind of see Holly disappointed in June's indifference to fight.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to watch.
Yeah, it's pretty clear.
Yeah, it was hard to watch when she like walks in with her, her Stepford wife clothes. She wasn't married yet, but and she's telling her about her job, in the as a book editor, and she quickly cuts her off and says like, well, Moira's doing this. I think it was a program. It had something to do with a program for
software.
Thank you. And then she has that conversation about Luke, and not wanting her to get married. And June kind of has that realization, and she tells her this line, which I was talking to Melissa about it the other day, which says like, it's not the time to play house, it's the time to fight. And, that made me think of season 4 when she's leaving to go kill Fred.
Yes.
And she's looking at the window and she sees Luke and Moira and Holly.
Oh my God, that's the best.
And she kind of realizes that, she can't really play house. And like she has, like season 3 says, Mama's got work. Yeah, I think, I always think that June had this kind of resentment towards her mom. I know we see it when she gives birth, when they show the flashback when she's giving birth to Hannah, because she's saying that she's not going to come, like she was kind of expecting her mother not to come. And obviously we see that Holly was always fighting, always, and June wanted more of what she didn't have, like that family life.
Right.
But it's weird because June was never a traditional woman, like when she's picking up Hannah from the hospital, they kept telling Miss Ben Cole, and she's like, no, it's Osborne. She had that fight and that non-traditional, but yet she was willing to settle, which is very inconsistent. But I guess it's part of that not fight. She wasn't fighting with her mom. Like, it's not a fight. It's just like, and it's not like a competition either, but it's like when your mom wants you to do something and you want to go the opposite way. I think that in this episode, she realizes that, her mom was right, and I think it's something that she will follow through. We'll see it in the next seasons as well, that her mother was right. And she even says it. I think she says it in this episode that she was right. She knew that something was coming.
Yeah. And she's like, no, she knew she was right.
Exactly.
And she was.
I have something here about resentment.
I mean, she definitely resents her because she says, I forgive you, Mom, which admits that you did not before.
Yeah, I noticed that in the scene when she's birthing Hannah, because I don't think in this episode you just see that June wanting to do her own thing, but she's still going against her mother's wishes, but she's doubting herself. At the end of that scene, she's kind of like second guessing if she has to marry Luke or not. Like, that's what she wants to do, but she's listening to her mom. So it's just very weird to me how she kind of still settled and felt comfortable into that. But then I also think, when she says, no mother has ever completed a child's idea and it's vice versa, I also think she feels guilty because she failed Hannah, because she was complacent. She failed Hannah.
Yeah.
So
she did. They both failed Hannah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But she's going to do better by fixing the world, trying.
She says it when she leaves in the plane too. I try to do something better.
Oh, yeah.
I think something like that.
No, that was when she fought for Janine, or didn't stone Janine.
Oh, okay. Yeah. True.
Claudia also pointed out, I can't remember if we talked about this, but at the Boston Globe in episode 3, when June says, what about Hannah? After he said that she's going to leave soon, or they're going to get her out soon. And she says, what about Hannah? And he looks really sad and like, kind of like he feels like a failure. And I think that moment, like Claudia said, probably stuck with him forever from that point forth. And that's a big part of why he's working so hard to get the Hannah information after June's left and he will never see her again. He's still like, what can I do to help her? Obviously Hannah. So he works really hard at that because he couldn't before, and now he's gained the power and he's able to do so. That's true. And adding to that, we can also talk about season 2 when he has to drive her and he actually sees her with Hannah. I mean, that had to... I think that was a big deal. Yeah. Yeah. I think that also he realized, it's not an idea. She's real now. It's kind of like when he sees Luke, it's not an idea. I don't know if he knew, if she told him about Luke or not. I think in the book, he knows about Luke one way or another. He knows about Luke because he knows about Hannah. And they talked a lot more than we saw. I think we mentioned it a little briefly recently, but they spent nights together. They spent 2 months at the Globe together. They talked a lot more than we saw because this is a TV show. So people that say they don't know each other at all, that's not true.
Yeah, no, that's definitely not true.
They show us the sex scenes because they're great and they're good for TV, but they had the conversations too. He knows about the Jezebel letters. They say that in the script. He clearly he knows about Hannah. Obviously, he knows, he's asked about Hannah's dad. He knows about these things. They just don't have time to show us all that.
True.
But yeah, she becomes real at the end of season 2, like you're saying. No, nothing is real until you see it.
Well, I don't mean that he didn't believe her, but like what I mean is just the reality just smacks you in the face.
No, I don't mean that either. It becomes more real though when you see somebody, even when it's a baby. Like, I don't know, even when I'm having a baby, you have the baby and then it's a very, very real thing. Yeah. It's no longer an idea that is lovely. But no, I think when he saw Hannah, it became very real. And you could see that through the tears in his eyes. It was a big moment for him. And I love that scene out in the snow. I mean, I hate it too. It's awful.
The worst scene. When
Hannah's taken away from her again and he runs to her and drops to his knees and they're holding onto each other so tightly. Like, it's a huge moment. And of course, you're right that I'm sure his drive for Hannah information grew from that moment on. And it did, because they cut out of the season 3 scripts the fact that he was trying to get her and was working with Commander Mackenzie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. And then the Testaments came out, which is the sequel Margaret Atwood wrote. And it was a dramatic swerve on their direction of plot. We won't say what happened, but it changed the direction of the plot, and they cut those scenes where Nick was trying to get close to Commander Mackenzie. And I would have loved to see that. That would have been.
Yeah, I mean, at least we got the file, because he didn't have to do the file once he knew, June was out of.
Yeah,
and he still did it. So, like
he said, I never thought I would give this to you in person. He was just doing it to be a good man,
That killed me.
I know, me too.
Yeah, that killed me.
Yeah, so Nick looks disappointed in this episode that he doesn't have any information. He looks like a failure, and he in the future succeeds.
Okay, I think that's a wrap on our deep dive into season 2, episode 3. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next week when we talk about season 2, episode 4. Bye.
I think about us, the 3 of us, what we could be. I think about it all the time.
Please. It's terrible.
No, it's not. I know June. She's my friend. I care about her. How's your day going? You look pretty.
Thanks. I wore it just for you. Our father's a driver named Nick. He helped me to survive. Yes, you can, because I can't lose you.
I'm not gonna let anything happen to you.
What about you?
Your girlfriend is a badass.